This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome everybody to this week's edition of Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Boy, 60 minutes away. I really didn't think realistically Adam and I would fire up the microphones and be talking about a football team that's one game away, one 60-minute performance away from being in the Super Bowl, going to Las Vegas, having the entire NFL world talk about you. The Lions are going to get a lot of press this week in the lead-up to the game this Sunday against San Francisco, but my goodness, a playoff run right in the middle of it. We get to talk about it. It's crazy. I can't believe it. I'm still in shock, even today, that this Detroit Lions football team has a chance to go mano-a-mano with the big dog. As everybody knows, Adam and I love wrestling, and the old saying goes, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And the man, in the eyes of the NFL world, are the San Francisco 49ers. And the Lions are going to go out west. The Doc is going out west this weekend. It's going down. I'm California dreaming. I have no idea what it's going to be like because all you weirdos are messaging me what actually goes down in San Francisco. So I might just bottle up in the hotel, go to the game, and fly right back to Detroit. But all in all kidding aside, this team, this Detroit Lions team, is dangerous. And I think they're dangerous because they have no pressure. Yes, the opportunity is there to go to the Super Bowl, but when you open as a 7-point underdog, nobody really believes realistically that you're on the level of the 49ers. And I think that makes the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell dangerous. Thank you, NFL world. Thank you, Vegas odds makers, because I think the Lions are going to San Fran playing loose, playing comfortable, and they're going to let their balls hang out. They're going to swing it, and I think they have the biggest opportunity that they may ever have to get to the Super Bowl right now. Sunday, 9:30 Eastern Time, the Detroit Lions could be in the Super Bowl, cuz.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great spot for them, right? If you were to go back to the beginning of the year and you were to name all of these teams that are vying for a shot in the Super Bowl, which one of these things would not be like the other? It's the Detroit Lions. There were no expectation that the Detroit Lions would get to this point. So going into this game, the Detroit Lions are playing with house money. The Detroit Lions are already one of the teams that are incredibly dangerous because Dan Campbell sometimes plays, we'll call it a little reckless. I think that's probably a bad term to use to describe what he does, but Dan Campbell really does sometimes fly by the seat of his pants and really does put pressure on other teams. You now factor in the fact that this team, I don't even think this team believed that they could get to this point. You know, there's a lot of stuff that comes out, and you just kind of try to read between the lines sometimes with some of the coach speak. And look, Dan Campbell and his coaching staff did have expectations for this season. I don't know if they expected to be here. So now that you're here, just go ahead and wreck shop. Go ahead and push. Go ahead and win the whole damn thing. Play this 60 minutes like you've got nothing left to get to the point where we never thought you'd ever be. You know, as a Detroit Lions fan who is 40 years old, I never thought in a million years I'd see the Detroit Lions playing a Super Bowl. You know, you're a little bit older than me, and I don't think you've ever expected this. And here's the thing. This is what makes it so fascinating. The NFC North is building, right? The NFC North is getting to become a very sick division. If you watched what took place last weekend with the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers, watching that game unfold, I was more terrified to play Green Bay than I was San Francisco. Green Bay is building something. Basically, since Thanksgiving, Green Bay has unlocked a new level. They are operating in a manner that is outrageous. That is kind of scary. This is a team that you now have to mark on your calendar, and you're going to have to battle them. This is not a team that you can take lightly. Jordan Love is playing at an exceptional level. You look at what's going on in Chicago. Chicago has a shit ton of draft capital, a ton of it. And whether you like the way they're building or you don't, they've got the resources there, whether it is cap space or whether it is draft capital, to really and truly put a solid team together. They've got a decision to make at quarterback. They've got the first overall pick, so they can draft somebody new and trade away Justin Fields, or they can elect to build around Justin Fields. They are in a prime position that you were in similarly a few years ago. So a ton of cap space, a ton of draft capital, and then you look at Minnesota. Minnesota, on paper, has arguably the best team in the division. They need to figure out what they're doing with quarterback, and they've got to make some adjustments to kind of take that next step going forward. They've got a very good head coach. And look, they are a dangerous team that needs to retool just a little bit. All that being said, the NFC North next year is going to be incredibly dangerous. So you might not be in this spot again. Look at what happened with the Eagles. Eagles were playing in a Super Bowl last year, and after their first 11 games, they've kind of fallen apart. This team was limping into the playoffs, and then they were embarrassed by the Bucs, a team that look, you played a very good game and you beat and you took care of, but your future is not guaranteed. So with all that being said, you are playing with house money. You have one of the most dangerous coaches. He's incredibly intelligent. I know a lot of people made fun of Dan Campbell because of what he said 3 years ago. Dan Campbell has proven everybody wrong. He's incredibly intelligent, and the roster that has been built between him and Brad Holmes is absolutely disgusting. Just go back and look at the game last week where you got so much production from a rookie draft class that helped carry you to that win. Your future's not guaranteed. You have to push all in. Go win this game. You are 60 minutes away from playing in a Super Bowl. And you know what? If you get Kansas City, that means we're going to start the season the way we ended the season. And that's a bit of a fairy tale right there. If you get Baltimore, you get a chance to right the wrong that took place earlier this year where they embarrassed you. So go out, win this game, push all in, win it all. You are playing with all of the house money. You can do this. You can do this. What do you think about their future? Because look, draft pick wise, I think this team is in a really good position, right? There are conversations about extending Jared Goff, which we knew was going to happen. The cap space is going to go up. It always goes up, right? You've got a general manager who appears to have a pretty good lock on the draft. Whether you like what he does or doesn't, the move's paid off. The move's paid off. You can tell by what happened last week. This team does have a bright future. But that being said, the NFC North has a bright future. Does the future of the NFC North scare you a little bit? And does it make you feel a little bit more, I guess, importance or maybe a little bit more anxiety going into this weekend where you kind of have to win this because you might not be back here?
Oh, yeah. No, I fully think that this Detroit Lions team is like, let's win it now. They truly believe. They're confident that, you know what? Why can't we beat the Niners? Why can't we beat the Chiefs or the Ravens? I think the Ravens pose the biggest challenge because of the mobility of Lamar Jackson.
For sure.
But this football team is scary confident. They know, like, look, we've done it. We've done the work. We've put in the effort. We've put in the time and experienced all the struggles that a football team needs. Dan Campbell says scarred to perfection. And now you realize, you know what? The ultimate competitiveness in guys like Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jared Goff, that's a lot of talent. And I think that nobody's looking to next year because I do believe that every year is different. And if Goff, it does worry me, obviously, because the Giants won a playoff game and people thought, okay, now look, they're the team of the future. Look, they could dominate the NFC. They paid their quarterback and they fell off. It's just a tough league. It's a tough situation. But I do have more faith that the Lions in their Super Bowl window is open, and it's going to be open for a little bit of time just based on the way in which Brad Holmes is utilizing the cap, the way in which he is deciphering what kind of talent to bring in, having a young football team with a lot of players on a contract that are very, very reasonable. The question mark becomes, how do the Lions look and perform when Aiden gets paid, Penei gets paid, St. Brown, Goff, some of these guys are going to get paid. And so that means guys like Alex Anzalone, guys like Cam Sutton, those veterans that are on the high end of the scale might not be around. So we'll see how that looks. And like you said, the Eagles lost both coordinators. The Lions are trending in that direction, but it kind of appears that some of the jobs are getting filled. And I think Ben Johnson gets a job and maybe Aaron Glenn comes back. I think that's kind of, when you look at it, I'm not seeing Aaron Glenn getting he's gotten a second interview with the Falcons, but you're not hearing that buzz that you typically would hear. And some of these jobs are going to get filled potentially by Jim Harbaugh and things like that. But this Detroit Lions team cannot take the attitude that, oh, we'll be back and this is a prime opportunity. I mean, literally, you play Baker Mayfield and Stafford, quarterbacks that, yeah, they're solid, but not mobile, not killers. Brock Purdy, inexperienced. You can get to them. So the opportunity's there to make the argument possible. And I don't think that they're taking they believe truly that they can win the Super Bowl. I mean, Dan Campbell says in a video in public, he says, we got 2 more to go with the bye in the middle. So it's crazy, but it is, when you look at it, cuz I am a little bit concerned because they did not escape the Bucs game without injury. Jonah Jackson's probably going to miss. Frank Ragnow's beat up. I'm not so certain that when you look at it, this football team goes as the O-line goes, and this offensive line is beat up. I think Ragnow definitely will appear and perform at a high level, but he won't be 100%. But Jonah Jackson for sure is going to be gone. And if you look at it, Awosika gave up a bunch of pressures, even though he's getting talked up by the coaching staff. He gave up a bunch of pressures when he got in there. I think he gave up 7. So that's not good, because Goff is significantly and statistically different when he's pressured as opposed to when he's got a clean pocket. And the Bucs defense is one thing. They present a challenge, but the 49ers defense with those linebackers and Warner and Greenlaw, oh my God. Jesus, they're not going to be able to work those middle schemes like they did against the Bucs. Some of those concepts that they were trying to do might not work. This one might be the one where you got to hand the ball off to Montgomery, hand the ball off to Gibbs, and try your absolute best to control this one, because people are kind of expressing that the 49ers defense is just as good as the Jets was last year, and that was a grind. I'm thinking this game might end up in the teens. So I'm not so certain that this one is going to be the closest battle, and because this football team hasn't trailed in 60 minutes. So to be able to lead the game completely against the Bucs was crazy. But that offensive line concerns me. You concerned at all about the injury to Jonah Jackson?
Yeah, I think you have to be, especially going into a game of this magnitude. And look, I don't think this is going to be a game where you're expecting Jared Goff to step back and throw the ball 43 times. To me, it felt like that Bucs game, he was setting a record for his pass attempts. This is definitely a game where you're going to lean on this beat-up offensive line. That is your strength, is the offensive line. Yeah, it's taken a couple body blows here, losing Jonah Jackson. Frank Ragnow at this moment in time, I feel like he's being held together with super glue and duct tape, but you're going to count on your running backs. You're going to count on a guy like David Montgomery. You're going to count on a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. You're going to count on a guy who gets some weird calls, some weird playing time, and a guy like Craig Reynolds who gets a carry, and it's a big one for 1 yard and a touchdown to help you win a game. So you're going to count on these guys because, look, it's a lot easier to run block than it is to pass block, especially if you're a guy like Uwasika, who, like you said, struggled a little bit. So you're going to go into this game and you're going to count on this run game. That is where this game is going to be won and lost, I feel, is on the offensive line with the run game. And look, you don't want to necessarily put the ball in Jared Goff's hands that many. This is the thing. You look at his splits, right? Like, Jared Goff has done incredible work, and Jared Goff is the leader of this team. And I'm not trying to slight him in the least, but this is the thing. His splits dictate this. You look at the stats. When he goes on the road and he has to play outside, he's not the same quarterback. On top of that, you factor in, you touched on it a little bit, their defensive line is very good. Their linebacking core is exceptional. So you're going to have pressure, Whether it's from that initial line with guys like Bosa or Chase Young, or it's going to be coming from that second group of Greenlaw. You're going to get pressure, and it's going to come. What does Jared Goff do in those moments? So I think you need to work the play action passes. I think you need to lean on a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. You need to lean on a guy like David Montgomery. You're going to have to work a guy like Craig Reynolds in to maybe break some stuff up. You're going to also probably see a couple of 2 tight end sets. Like, don't be surprised if that's the case, because look, when you're trying to hold up that offensive line, the way you can help support it is by bringing Sam Laporta in and bringing in an additional tight end. Don't be surprised if you see a 21 package where you've got the 2 tight ends and you've got a running back in the back to help chip and block. It's going to put your wide receivers in a spot where they're going to have to make plays. And you've seen Amon-Ra St. Brown make play after play after play. So it's going to be a lot of that. It's going to be a lot of guys like Craig Reynolds. It's going to be a lot of other guys helping to chip in. And look, Lions went out and made a move. You end up losing Brock Wright, who was rumbling, stumbling, tumbling for 29 yards, making a big play in a game. You might get that out of a guy like Zach Ertz. What does the addition of Zach Ertz mean for this team? And specifically, does he get in and does he contribute in this game?
Man, it's interesting because just as we're talking about 10 minutes ago, the Lions announced some practice squad moves, and Zach Ertz officially hasn't signed yet. Maybe he's taking his little sweet time to get to Detroit in these icy roads. But they announced some practice squad moves which are interesting. They signed offensive lineman Matt Farniok and running back Jake Funk to the practice squad. And Jamar Jefferson was injured on the practice squad, so they put him on the practice squad IR. And they released Raymond Johnson from the practice squad. So a bunch of practice squad moves. Maybe the offensive lineman gets a look this week if Jonah Jackson's not available. You recognize that I do believe Zach Ertz is going to be part of the Lions. Dan Campbell was asked about it, and he said that, you know what, he's a guy that can make plays. It wasn't because of his Super Bowl experience or anything like that. At this point, the Lions feel like they have enough leadership. They think that he can make plays, and that's what they're trying to do. That's what made the James Houston saga really confusing, in that you make him active and you don't play him. So Dan Campbell's not just going to naturally throw people out there, and he's not going to follow the natural timeline that we think as well, because the natural timeline is, okay, you activate him, you throw him out there. They didn't feel like they needed him, which was crazy.
Can I throw something out there real quick?
Yeah.
Do you think maybe the activating but not playing of James Houston was one of those things where
gamesmanship?
You looked at everything on paper and he was like, I think we got enough. Maybe we save James Houston for a game where we're really going to need him. Maybe we save him for either the Packers or more than likely the San Francisco 49ers. Don't put anything on tape. We roll him out there, and he's a bit of a wild card, bit of a surprise factor.
No, absolutely. I think that they felt like, you know what, we can do a lot with our linebackers. We can do a lot with the outside edge with Aiden Hutchinson, and they're loving the blitz with the safeties. So if Atu Melifonwu is like an edge at this point in time with his speed and physicality, he's a great outside linebacker as well. He's so versatile that he plays like that. He's a safety that's emerged. Really a good story 3 years in, along with Derek Barnes. So, yeah, I agree. I think that they just didn't feel like at that point in time. Dan Campbell's been honest. He said that we won't put him out there if we feel like at the expense of somebody else, if he's going to give us less or not as much production. They felt like, okay, he's going to give him 10 snaps. What's he really going to bring in his first game back? But, again, how you're going to try that against the 49ers? I mean, they feature a decent offensive line and some elite players too. So that's very unique. But, again, I think with fans, and I get it, I don't think the Zach Ertz is the acquisition, if it happens, is a big deal. Look, Brock Wright was a guy that periodically would make a play, a spark player. Zach Ertz, similarly, you may get a play or two out of him, 15 yards, extended chains, 1 or 2 drives. That's about it. I mean, you got your horse. For me, any target that goes away from Sam Laporta makes me scratch my head, because Sam Laporta is the man. And it's weird because when you're in the locker room at Allen Park, he kind of is like a regular dude, you know what I mean? Just kind of like 6'2", not like overly built. But when you see him put on pads and the way in which he looks on the field, looks like a monster, like a big strapping figure that can move around and is athletic. So he's like one of those dudes that it actually looks more imposing on the field than he does in real life. And it's just crazy to think what that guy can do. And it's unfortunate for Brock Wright. He's really had a rough month with injuries and stuff like that. Gets back, makes a play, and then fractures his forearm. And Jonah Jackson in a contract year, man, any given Sunday, any time, man, that's going to be tough. But I think it's not so severe that it's going to preclude him from getting a contract. But and it's kind of trending that he might be a cap casualty situation, or someone else will offer him a little bit more scratch than the Lions are going to pay him. It doesn't feel like they're going to keep the band back together just because they just haven't been together all that much. But I just don't I think that people are excited. They love to see new signings. They love Zach Ertz because of the name. He's been in the playoffs. But basically, it's hard to picture, and I think you too, hard to imagine a guy off the streets, practices for 3 days, and all of a sudden gets love from Jared Goff. Jared Goff's particular, and he loves himself some St. Brown, Gibbs, and Laporta. To get in that mix, I just think you need a blocker, you need a body, and I don't see too much from Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I don't expect a whole lot from him. I mean, I'm not sure what you can really get from an older veteran. This guy's mid-30s. He was injured earlier this year, asked for his release. I know he has some familiarity with the coaching staff, but all that being said, you're basically bringing him in and he's trying to digest the playbook in a day or two. And they might put something in there for him, but like you said, it's one of those break glass in case of emergency type of plays. You're looking for a body, essentially. You're looking for somebody who can maybe catch a pass here or there, maybe spell Sam Laporta, maybe have an emergency backup in case something bad happens to Sam Laporta. Because, look, he's not 100%. Really and truly, at this point in the game, nobody in any of these games are 100%. So you're going out there looking for a guy who can possibly spell your stud tight end, your guy who you're basically your George Kittle. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a guy who can spell your George Kittle. So I don't expect a whole lot out of Zach Ertz. Speaking of George Kittle, San Francisco's offense is crazy explosive. There are some concerns that Deebo Samuel might not be able to play. He's a little bit banged up, got beat up in the game against Green Bay. But they've got one of the best running backs in Christian McCaffrey, one of the best tight ends in the game in Kittle. They've got Brandon Ayuk. They've got wide receivers galore. They've got running backs who can plays. They've got like you said, a decent offensive line. They've got guys all over the place who can make plays and do a lot of big things. On top of it, their head coach is an offensive scheming genius. How does this defense contain a very explosive San Francisco offense? Because I think the weak link and the really and truly the way to kind of derail what this offense can do is to get to Brock Purdy and get to Brock Purdy early. I think you do one of these corner blitzes, or you walk a linebacker up and somehow you get Aiden Hutchinson free and you just explode into the middle of Brock Purdy's chest and you put him on his ass. Even if it costs you 15 yards, you go and you make a statement immediately and you rattle his cage. I think it sets a tone and it kind of jars him a little bit and makes him a little bit nervous. Because, look, the defense that the Lions have, I'm just going to say it. Cam Sutton sucks, okay? He's not very good. He gets torched a lot. So your corners are put in really bad positions. I think your safeties are better than what Green Bay has. And I think your defensive front does a really good job of getting to the quarterback, maybe not bringing him down, but pressuring him and causing disruptions in offenses. I think the best way to really disrupt that offense is have one of those guys get there and take a shot on Purdy early and really send a tone. That'll help that secondary. It'll help those corners. Like I said, I think your safeties are good enough to make plays. If you go back, you watch that Green Bay game, their secondary had a chance to turn Brock Purdy over twice. Balls hit these guys in the 2 times, and they dropped them both. I don't think the Detroit Lions dropped those passes. I think the way, again, is by really rattling the mentality and really shaking the confidence of a guy like Brock Purdy, because then he's back there and he's second-guessing stuff. How does this team control, contain, whatever adjective you want to use, this explosive San Francisco offense?
Yeah, it's well, let me tell you my story
first
with
off,
Mr.
would you subscribe to the theory of hitting Purdy early, even if it costs you 15 yards on a personal penalty?
You read my mind, but not on Purdy. My experience with Run CMC has been, when he's on my fantasy team, he misses 6 games at a time. When I cut him, put him on waivers, let him go, everyone else picks him up, and he gets I looked at it this year, and I said, whatever it was, 7, 8, 9 games in a row, he got a touchdown. Yep. Motherfucker.
Dude, I said the same thing. I had a chance to draft him in a couple of my fantasy league. I passed on him because he's always hurt.
He's always hurt.
Except for this year.
And this year, he does his business. Of course. Okay. And for me, it actually, looking at it, Justin Jefferson, the number 1 pick, got hurt at the key time. It cost me seeding, where if I would have won a certain game, I would have been seeded higher, and it might have positioned me to advance farther than third. But I was happy with my fantasy year. I put together a real good, solid team for once, and it held up for the most part. Bad injuries at bad times.
Since we're talking about it, I got to get you your money, just FYI.
Yeah, it's all good, brother, all good. I look at it and I say, first and foremost, there's a chance Run CMC doesn't finish this game if he gets pounded. I don't know what they were doing, rubbing his thigh early on with some time off. The guy, for some reason, scares me. I think that all year long, the Lions have been stout against the run. You got to be confident that they're going to do it. But, hey, for whatever reason, he's got that Gibbs-like quality of being elusive, and he can make plays. And you saw him break away against the Packers as I was screaming my head off, please, please, Packers win so I don't have to travel, please, please. And he's doing his thing. I'm nervous about, definitely nervous about Run CMC. Purdy, look, I think you can rattle him. I think you can do some things to get to him. Aiden Hutchinson, the pressure, obviously, to disrupt. But like anything else, I think San Fran, they know what your weaknesses are. They're going to pick – I don't think Samuel's going to be as impactful. I think that shoulder injury, he's going to be out there iced up and numbed up and all that kind of stuff. I don't think I'm concerned. I'm definitely concerned about explosives from the run game, potential deep threats. You look at it, the guy that scares me, Ayuk. Feels like there's an unsung hero there. The guy's an amazing athlete and developed a lot of chemistry with Purdy early on. So I'm scared of Ayuk because you can use Samuel as a decoy, give him a couple runs here and there. But Ayuk's been the guy that went, for some reason against the Packers, didn't get heated up until later in the game. But Ayuk, Purdy, CMC, it's gonna be a challenge for this offense. But yeah, I know people are nervous about Cam Sutton, but again, it's a defense when you watch it on film. It's pretty clear they don't really give a shit about stopping teams from 20 to 20. It's like, okay, just don't let nobody scamper behind you and trot into the end zone. But then when there's less space on the field, you got a lot of good, talented ball hawks there, and they were able to keep the Bucs out of the end zone on certain occasions. But yeah, they're going to give up plays. It sucks, but it truly is the definition of bend, don't break, and it's been working. It's been working, and we have to give the defense credit. It has showed up in key moments. Takeaways 2 against the Bucs, sacks when you need it, and breaking up the runs and stuff like that. Yeah, look, it's offensive football. What scares me is the NFL going to let the Lions play their game? I could see a couple sacks, and then you see that yellow flag. Holding, Cam Sutton, holding, CD Deuce, holding, Alex Anzalone, illegal contact. You'd be like, oh my God. And this is one of the crews that throws the flags at a high rate, so prepare for 4 hours of football. This freaking Cleat Blakeman, that's a shitty-ass call there. Listen, if this game was at Ford Field, I'd be supremely confident. I'm confident the Lions play well. But I just find it hard to believe that the Lions are going to defeat the 49ers on the road against all the odds and stuff like that. So I'll be genuinely surprised. I think that they're going to do a good job limiting the explosives. But in the end, I'm just wondering who makes the least amount of mistakes in this game. And cuz we got to talk about it. Dan Campbell almost had an epic end-of-game blunder that I'm not certain why Todd Bowles is not getting more heat. Who in their right mind leaves a football game with a timeout on the board?
Dude, I was screaming at the TV. I was like, what are they doing? They have a timeout. Why aren't they calling the timeout? What the hell is going on here? Todd Bowles had the ability to put the Lions in a position where they had to pick up a first down, and you could have turned them over.
And what are the Lions?
And look,
what are the Lions doing? Snapping the ball with 16 seconds left.
Great.
Yeah,
They're going to kick a field goal. There's no guarantees.
Yeah, why are they snapping the ball with 16 seconds left? Dan Campbell's like, we bungled that. You can't do that in a game of this magnitude. You better make sure you mind your P's and Q's. I think this is a game Dan Campbell takes points. He'll be aggressive at times, but he'll take points. And this is not a situation in which you're happy to be here. There's no tomorrow if you lose. Take the points on the road when you can get it, and make sure that if you do go for it, you're not in shotgun calling horrific pitch passes or tosses to Jahmyr Gibbs that don't go nowhere. So it's not a situation where I'm going to be happy if they lose and they make those mistakes. If they play well, if they go in there and they go toe-to-toe with the 49ers and it's a final drive situation and they make the plays, I'll be happy. I think that the Lions are going to play to their capabilities. St. Brown needs the ball, Laporta. The one guy, the X factor for the Lions, and we say it every week, but the one guy that can make the 49ers fear is Jamison Williams. You get a deep pass of 50 yards, you put a shock in the 49ers early, you're going to have about 25% of the fans being Lions fans. I think we're going to see a really close contest that's going to go down to the wire. And in those kind of situations, if it happens, you get that simple. You get more sacks than the Niners, you get more turnovers, you win the game. And I think that they're very close to being able to accomplish it. The one thing that scares me is, when you're touted as a physical team, how many flags are they going to throw on these defensive backs and linebackers, and are they going to call holding on Aiden Hutchinson? Because you're all going to see it. Everything's heightened. Everybody can see every play. And if you don't let Aiden do his thing, the X factor on offense is Jamison Williams. The X factor on defense is Aiden. He can wreck the game, and I think he can smell it. He's getting a sack a game, a lot of pressures, big game moments. This is where you got to call upon him. Aiden, you got to carry the team. You got to put Purdy down and make his life a living heck. It's not a situation in which you can go out there and the Lions cannot go out there and have a repeat of 91 where you go out there and you lose 45-10 to the 49ers. You got to compete. You got to play strong, and I don't want to see Goff having it. It's now more in the rearview mirror, but in big games, Goff fumbles the ball, turns the ball over.
Yep.
I don't want that happening. I don't want to see Nick Bosa feasting on the Lions and forcing mistakes. If the Lions play clean, 60 minutes away, I'll be in San Francisco. I can't rush the field from the media box, but it'll be interesting to see how the fans, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, what the hell that would be like. I'm starting to picture it. So that's how you know it's a big deal. Is I would be disappointed if the Lions end up losing. But in the end, the Detroit Lions are one game away from being in the Super Bowl. One game away from the final opportunity to bring home a Lombardi trophy. And people are predicting it. A lot of people are thinking this football team can compete at a high level. Are there any X factors that we're not talking about? Josh Reynolds, obviously a great individual that's doing his thing. You confident in Jared Goff, cuz?
Well, it really does kind of feel like this team is a team of destiny, right?
Yes.
The way everything is kind of shaken loose and kind of broke for this team. You had to get through Matt Stafford, right? There's a tie there. You had to get through Baker Mayfield, and you got a home playoff game. So that was a break that went your way as well. And now, look, you got to go on and you got to do some work here. You got to take out the 49ers, and then the chips will fall where the chips fall, and you could possibly be playing for a Super Bowl. So it does feel like it's a bit of a team of destiny with the way things have kind of shaken loose for the Lions here. This is also has a feeling of being America's team. It really feels like, and it's weird to say this, it feels like everybody in the United States but Chiefs fans, Ravens fans, and 49er fans are rooting for the Detroit Lions. It really does feel like it's this little underdog, that the little engine that could just kind of climbing up the hill to take on what has been the bully of the NFC for a little bit now. I mean, San Francisco has been a team that has been the guys that have been supposed to have won the Super Bowl for 3, 4, maybe 5 years now. I mean, it feels like the 49ers are always kind of within striking distance and something silly happens. Hopefully it works out the same way for the Detroit Lions, and it is something silly that happens, and the Lions are able to win this game. I do think you're right, though. When you talk about an X factor, a guy like Jameson Williams is a guy who it really feels like there's a lot of potential bubbling underneath the surface. It feels like it is on the verge of coming out. His route running has gotten better. I'd like to see him get a little bit more separation. At some point, you're going to have to utilize him downfield. And it could be one of those things that when the play hits, it swings the momentum for you. It basically puts the game on a pivot. And next thing you know, it tips the board in your favor and everything is sliding in your direction. They need something like that. Or it could be as simple as him running down the field and whoever is covering him pulls him down for a pass interference, and now all of a sudden you are in striking distance for a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown to do something, a guy like Craig Reynolds, who has been a guy who has been a bit of an X factor like you touched on. He has done a lot of good things, making big plays when needed, a guy who has really embraced his supporting role of Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you've got guys, you have talented guys who can do things. I really think when it comes push to shove offensively, you're going to need a big game out of a guy like David Montgomery. The run game is going to be incredibly important for this team. You are going to need to run the ball effectively to keep the ball out of San Francisco's hands. If you can tire out San Francisco's defense by running the ball, by bludgeoning them with your run game, you can wear them down, and then you can take advantage of them in the fourth quarter. There is a roadmap that is set up for you to win this game, and it is as simple as offensively controlling the ball, controlling the pace of play, beating up that San Francisco defense, utilizing your run game, utilizing some of those short passes, setting up that big breakout pass downfield with Jameson Williams, and utilizing all of the talent that you have, right? It really does feel like, this is a conversation I've had with a couple different people too. This really does feel like almost like the 04 Pistons. It feels like a team that doesn't have a superstar. It's got a lot of guys who are really freaking good and are on the cusp of making that all-star game, kind of like the 04 Pistons were. But they don't have that superstar that everybody is talking about. It's a lot of guys that everybody is behind and everybody likes. Now, defensively, I've already kind of laid it out for you, what has to happen. A guy like Aiden Hutchinson, a guy like Iffy, a guy like James Houston, somebody has to get to Brock Purdy. You got to get to Brock Purdy early. You got to hit him. You got to rattle him. And then you are going to need that secondary. You're going to need guys to force turnovers. Brock Purdy has shown the propensity to throw the ball to the other team's jersey. He's not a guy who is infallible. So your secondary, if it's CD Deuce, if it's Iffy, if it's, I don't know, insert safety or cornerback here, they have to come up with a big turnover. And your linebackers have to do a good job locking up a guy like Kittle. I think Derek Barnes, again, an underrated player, a guy who made a monster play in last week's game. A guy like Derek Barnes locking up a guy like George Kittle. You've got other guys who can step up and hit the quarterback and really clog up the middle. It is going to be taking out some of those individual pieces that San Francisco has on offense, limiting a Christian McCaffrey, limiting a George Kittle, limiting a Brandon Ayuk. If Deebo Samuel plays, limiting those guys, limiting those big plays, because we have seen it. We've seen it for an entire season. This defense plays differently when they're within the 20-yard line. When they're in the red zone, this defense plays different. When it's basically between the 20s, big plays can happen all day long. But once they get down into that area where everything condenses, constricts, this team really does bow up. This team, there's an area of confidence when they get into this area where they're able to just kind of enforce and impose their will. And I think this game is going to be incredibly important for this team. Once they get into that red zone on defense, they're going to have to play some of their best football. But I really think you have to get to the quarterback. Those pressures are going to have to turn into sacks, or they're going to have to turn into tackles for losses in order for this team to win. And I think an underrated player, Derek Barnes, Jack Campbell, those guys limiting a guy like George Kittle and really helping the rest of the defense focus on a guy like Christian McCaffrey or Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, and trying to take those guys out of the game as well really helps this defense and really helps this team control and helps them move on to play for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's wild to think about. 60 minutes away, clean football, and it can go either way. Really, it can. Lions can ball out, Goff going home. Lions can make this even a situation in which they get out to an early lead. This could be something where the 49ers are tight, where they're a little bit nervous. The Lions definitely can get off to a good start.
You just said something, and I hate to interrupt you. I'm sorry. But something that we have seen in the last two games, and it made me scratch my head this past week. Dan Campbell in both games has chosen to take the ball immediately. Says, I want the ball, puts his offense out there. Now, we agree the offense is the better unit here, right? Is this a game where maybe he defers to get that ball in the second half and try to pair something up in the final 2 minutes, in the first 2 minutes, the final 2 minutes of the first half and the first 2 minutes of the second half, and kind of use those 4 minutes to maybe stretch a lead or maybe try to take control of this game? We know that the third quarter has been some woes for the Lions. They looked really good in the second half this past week. But do you think maybe there's a little bit of a different mentality? Maybe he says, no, I'm going to put my defense out there. We want the ball in the second half if they win the coin toss. And look, it really comes down to little things like that. Like,
no, if you win the coin toss, I think the strength of the team is the offense. You win the coin toss, you take the football. Period. They've been doing it. I think it's been great, and you recognize that you can get you can get into rhythm quickly, even if you don't have a lot of first downs. But you can start to get the game going because there's something to it that the 49er fan base is not crazy, but there's still it's still a home fan base cheering against you. So you want to be able to quiet the crowd, get momentum, and I think this team realizes if we play from ahead, we get confidence. The pressure comes is if the 49ers get the football first, right, march right down the field, score a touchdown. That drive coming off on the heels of being down 7-0 might be really bad, and you don't want that.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that. It'll be, what'll be interesting to see is how much of Dan Gamble do we get in this game, right? Like how much of his throw it at the wall, risk it for the biscuit, let's see what we've got mentality really shows up here. Like it's paid off the last 2 weeks, right? You get into those 4th and goal situations, and this guy has no problem going for it, and it's helped you win 2 football games. Do you maybe see a situation where, like you said, they take the ball to start the game, they come out second half, and he kind of tips his cap a little bit to Sean Payton, where he goes for an onside kick, and maybe they get it. You know what I'm saying? I think this game.
Oh man, you think the fan base could handle something like that? That's a tough call.
Heart attacks,
I could see a fake field goal try. Everywhere. I could see that. Maybe another fake punt, but man, that's going to be the ultimate gamble in a situation like that, because that's the ultimate risk.
Look, I expect him to do something like that.
You open yourself up to the biggest criticism, right? He's gotten so much positive praise. Little bit of a knock for that, whatever that was going on at the end of the game against the Bucks. But does Dan Campbell bring it out in the championship game against the 49ers? I don't know. I would be a little bit surprised. I think that they got a good enough team to play it closer to the vest. But it all depends on the flow of the game, and that's hard to predict. But because what was good, if you saw it, the threat of the fake caught the attention of the Bucks, and that let Jack Fox boom the kicks deep in the zone of the Bucks' own zone. So the Lions special teams has been really spectacular. Jack Fox, his punts are spectacular. So this is one of those games where everything's got to be in order, and you got to stay with it no matter what. You got to play clean, and I see it. I see a good game. I see one of the best games of the year taking place here, and the biggest question mark you could ask on the other side is, do you get the choke from the 49ers? 7-point lead, fourth quarter, a little bit of tightness. Lions tie the game up. 6 minutes left. 49ers get the ball. Do they take it down the field, or does the Lions march down the field with the football? It just has the feel of the Lions just understanding what it takes and having the hunger. But bottom line, it's fair to say the 49ers are more talented than the Lions. They just have better positions at all spots. But the Lions collectively as a unit can make up some ground by the effort that they have on defense in terms of some turnovers and in close games. Tried and true. The reason why I'm predicting the Lions to go to the Super Bowl is when most things are equal, you go with the quarterbacks. And I think Jared Goff is riding the hot hand. He's got more weapons. Kittle does scare me. Didn't include him in my talk. You did, thankfully. I'm scared of the WWE wannabe doing his thing, flexing, wanting to show off to Sam Laporta, his buddy. But in the end, I think Goff outshines Brock Purdy. He's got a lot to prove. The ultimate underdog story. The ultimate, hey, you guys discarded me. The ultimate, hey, I want to do this for Ben Johnson, who's out the door. I think Goff delivers 3 touchdowns, a couple to Laporta, one to Amon-Ra, and the Lions win it, I think, 28-27. 1-point game. Could be in this. It could be 2017 in that neighborhood. But if the weather holds and it's nice and the Lions can get going, get their legs under them, I can see some points. I could see the Lions grinding it out, and I can envision it. I can envision another flight to Vegas, trying to figure out how to survive, and the eyes of the NFL world. If you know the layout of Vegas, the way Allegiant Stadium is, like it's right behind Mandalay Bay. It's basically Mandalay Bay, Luxor, and the stadium all in a row where all the shit and craziness is going to happen. And a week off would be nice. Going to Vegas would be crazy. But in the end, I'll ask you this. Given these two scenarios, because the Lions winning the Super Bowl is just the wildest of wild dream scenarios, would you take the Lions losing now to the 49ers or the Lions losing in the Super Bowl? Because I think that pain of getting that taste stings a lot more than almost getting there. So if they're going to lose, I would rather have it be Sunday than to have all the hype, all the work, all the talks, all the discussions about golf, all that, only to go out there and lose. That would be a tough pill to swallow. And it's fucking expensive to get out there. I'm going to have to take 9 layovers to get to $200 for a flight. You guys are crazy. You guys are
you got
paying
the company
it because
credit card. You got this.
What would you do? What loss would you take?
So let me preface this first by saying this. I think the Lions lose this game. Okay. I think when you look at it on paper, I think San Francisco is a better team. I think, look, as good as Dan Campbell is, I think
Shanahan's a little better.
Shanahan's he's just better. He's been there, done that. It really just kind of comes down to experience. I think Dan Campbell is going to get to that level, but I just don't think he's there right now. So I think the Lions do lose this game. I think it's a close game. I think it's one of those things where it is a game that they lose by a field goal. I think it's 27-24. I hope I'm wrong, though. I want to be wrong. If I had to pick, I want to lose in the Super Bowl. I want to have the taste of getting there. I want to have the taste of being one of those fans that gets to see my team play for it all. I would love for the Detroit Lions to match up against the Kansas City Chiefs because I think the Lions could beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I think if they match up against Baltimore, and we can talk about this hopefully next week, I think if they match up against Baltimore, Baltimore is a much more difficult challenge because of a lot of the things that Detroit doesn't do well. Baltimore has the ability to exploit, whether it's a mobile quarterback, whether it's having wide receivers that can get downfield and stretch your defense and open up a lot of stuff underneath. And I would expect Mark Andrews to be back by the time the Super Bowl rolls around. But I would choose to lose in the Super Bowl than to lose this week. To have come this far and then take that L, I would much rather push it off for another 2 weeks and get to see this team in the Super Bowl, having a great time watching that game, going into work on that following Monday with a headache because I'm hungover, possibly sad because they lose, but getting to enjoy that Super Bowl run.
Oh, man. 60 minutes away. Any tips for a flight? 5.5 hours to California. I think I'm doing the reading thing, watching some television. Any tips for a long flight? It's my first flight in a lot of years, man. I'm a little nervous, but it's an opportunity to spend a day in California. I think the weather's going to be 65, so one day in the sun, baby. Any tips for me traveling?
Just try to relax. Maybe take a book, read a book. If you like music, listen to music. You like podcasts, so download a couple of podcasts.
Yes.
And like I said, sleep. I usually sleep on flights, so just take a nap. You'll be all right.
Got it. Here we go, baby. Detroit Lions, NFC Championship game. Talks about the Lions, the build, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell. It's been great to see. It's an opportunity for the eyes of the NFL world to be on the Detroit Lions, and it's well-deserved. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Videos, California. We'll get all the content that you need. And if the Lions win it, make sure you guys hit us up with your party videos from Detroit. If you're at the watch party, let us know what that vibe is going to be like. We'll bring you all the information from the players live as it happens. Man, I can't wait for it. NFC title opportunity for the Lions. Make sure anywhere you listen to your favorite audio content to type in these 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. Just like you have been, just like it's been delivered for the last 10 years. Type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and when you subscribe, our content finds you each and every Thursday. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. This has been Doc and Jock. Can't wait. Maybe next week we're talking about the Lions and breaking down the Super Bowl. Man, oh man. Let's do it.